Is this thing on? What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic into their weekend. Coming into the home stretch here for Christmas. A lot of folks are going to be getting some new car parts underneath their Christmas tree in their stocking, strapped to their menorah or whatever other, I don't know, thing you're going for. Anyway, it's that time of the year. Happy almost winter solstice. And in this video, we are going to be talking about this thing. It's the green filter. Not to be confused with the AFE oiled filter or the K&N oiled filter, which all of them have a very eerie, similar appearance. I want you to see one thing real quick. You see my hand running around in the back? You might even be able to see me in the background over here, because I can sure as shit see you guys. This thing, you can see through this sumbitch. So when I'm saying that this filter media is, you can see through it, I mean, check this out. You can see the glare off of the car in the background. Might even be able to see some of the color back there too. So yeah, anyway, decided to throw one of these on the car and do a little data logging for you guys. Even went so far as to buy the recharge kit. I'll get into some of the technical details here in just a second. One thing I will say about this filter, quality is amazing. Fit and finish is very nice. Goes right into the stock air box without any muss, not any fuss. It's a nice tight fit. As far as being a serviceable part, this company did an amazing job of doing their part to make sure that it fit the car properly. And not any better than the stock filter, just very well put together. So at least it's got that going for it. One of the things that I noticed about the filter as well is just the heft of the thing. The filter, when you hold it up next to, or I'm sorry, when you hold it in relation to the stock style filter, it's got a considerable amount of mass to it, you know? So there's that to consider. I wouldn't consider any of that really any more than the fact that, well, if you look at the amount of rubber that's on this thing, that'll start to kind of key you in as far as some of the drawbacks on this filter. We're going to get into that here in just a second. But I did like the filter enough, at least from the looks of it, and knowing how K&N filters and their ilk perform, I figured I would at least give it a shot. The main reason why is I get a lot of questions about air filters of all things. What air filter is the best? What does this filter do or that filter do? And then we get into cold air kits and things like that. And as efficient as the Hellcat system is, the box, the snorkel, and all of that, it's very difficult to beat. The aftermarket manufacturers have got a very, very steep hill to climb. And so guys are trying to find an edge wherever they can. And obviously in this case, a pop-in air filter seems like a pretty solid investment. But here's the interesting thing. There are some things to consider. Now, this is first and foremost, and I'd never fault a company for marketing, okay? But there is some, weapons grade bullshit on this box, all right? And so check this out. I love this kind of stuff. This is the box that it comes in. And by the way, if you guys are worked up over possibly getting one of these, it's part number 7139. That's your green filter. Comes pre-oiled from the factory, but you do have to get a charging kit, or basically an oiling kit, cleaning kit, if you will, for further servicing, because it's an oiled filter. You're going to have to service it. But again, as I just got through showing you, as far as how much does it filter, let me just do that again, just so we can have a little bit of fun with this. How much does it filter? I don't know. You can basically see right through the thing. If you can see through it, chances are there's some stuff getting through it. Like I say, I can see the screen just perfectly fine through this thing. In fact, it's like looking through a really loosely woven sweater is what this thing is like. So in the broad daylight, you could walk down the street and not have a problem with that. So anyway, sorry, getting back to it. This is pretty funny. So, turbulent air enters filter area. I feel like this is, it's reading for entertainment, okay? Turbulent air enters filter area. Really? How do you figure? How do they even know where the air is coming from? Enters the filter. Okay. Ooh, turbulent air. Spooky. Air flows through the maximum surface area because of pleated design. What? What air filter isn't pleated? Flows through the maximum surface area because of pleated design. Okay, come on, man. This is, I mean, seriously? Anyway, dust and dirt when filter is oiled. See, they threw that little one in. Dust and dirt when filter is oiled are magnetically attracted to the outside layer of mesh, creating a tunnel effect. What the hell does that even mean? Look, I know that it's in English, but no, they're not magnetically attracted. How are they magnetically attracted? Are they made of iron? Because iron is magnetic. Last I checked, general dirt, atmospheric dust is not magnetic. Who writes this shit? But that doesn't stop. Now we have a run-on, by the way, a little grammatical error here. This keeps starting out with this. This keeps the cotton cleaner and does not cause significant airflow restriction to 50,000 street miles. What this? This is, it's like he's pulling it out. This. Anyway, this is so poorly done. Almost like it's foreign. Or, I don't know, American public school. Bonded woven cotton / mesh straightens airflow, reducing turbulence. What does that mean? Bonded woven mesh straightens airflow. What would even matter if it straightened the airflow afterwards? What's going on after that? There's a plenum there. Get real. Straightened and filtered high volume air enters the intake system faster. This, by the way, it's another bullet point. They don't understand the concept of bullet points. And I get it. You don't have to be a master of grammar to make a quality filter, but you would think that you would at least be college educated if you're an engineer and know that you don't bullet point minor things, right? So anyway, this increases the speed and amount of air into the engine. It's all bullshit. But it's hysterical reading for entertainment. So at least there's that. Somewhere on here, there's also a claim to have improves engine efficiency. This is the more fun part of it. More gas mileage. Okay, whatever. So anyway, there's your marketing bullshit in a nutshell for the filter. That's what you're going to have to weed through. But anyway, let's talk about the filter. Let's talk about the data, and then I will get to you guys here in just a second. Let's compare the two filters. First of all, I did all the square inches of actual just surface area. I didn't get into the number of pleats, which you can see there are a ton of pleats on the paper filter, whereas there are very few on the woven cotton filter. If you were to spread this thing out, it would be much, much larger than this filter. But as it sits, as it's installed, the surface area, the area on the filter that is seen by the intake air charge, stock versus the green filter gives up 12.5% in total surface area. And you can see that just with this rubber lip versus the stock filter. And by the way, guys, on the housing, got it off the car. I'm not going to drag it over as props, but the housing actually slides right here. And I want you to see the stock filter, this little bonded area right here where the metal bonds to the actual body of this filter. You're going to see this little wavy pattern. That's actually where the lip rides. So it sees all of the filter, not just part of it. So if the question is, yeah, but the housing, where does the housing fall and does this really matter? Actually, the housing falls right here on this lip. So you are losing all of this. Plus, take a look at the filter media itself, and it does get worse as the filter goes along. See how the I guess it's vulcanized rubber when they're putting this thing together. Anyway, that gets impregnated into the filter, so you lose this amount of actual filtering surface area. Is it significant? Well, yeah, maybe. Enough to be about 12.5%. So this filter has got to be able to filter, at least the media has to be able to filter 12.5% more than the stock filter does just to break even. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we start to talk about the data. So the drag strip is shut down. Didn't have access to a dyno, but I've really got the next best thing. I was data logging this with my HP Tuners scan software. And what I was looking for was difference in KPA. KPA is basically just shorthand of saying manifold pressure, the boost pressure, which is a function of actual max airflow. I was also looking at injector duty cycle throughout this entire experiment. And the one funny thing that popped up every single time I tested was that KPA, in this case, manifold pressure, and the injector duty cycle was identical throughout every single one of the passes. Gave the car plenty of time to drive, plenty of time to learn, plenty of time to figure stuff out. I drove the car for the exact same amount of time each time before I hit wide open throttle. I also took it a second step farther, and I let the car sit overnight with the green filter installed and took the car out stone cold on a night that was just a little bit cooler than the night that I was doing the original testing. Started off with the stock filter, got the data logs, came back, loaded the green filter, ran the car, came back, parked it, let it sit overnight, lit it off, and then drove it the next morning to get all of this data set. I gave the green filter every single opportunity that I possibly could for it to be able to best the stock filter, and it never did. Every single data set was identical. Stock filter to the green filter, back to the stock filter. I'm sorry, green filter, stock filter, back to the green filter, cold weather, early in the morning, gave the green filter every opportunity, and you could trace any minor gain either with the stock filter or with the green filter. You could attest that specifically to the fact that it was slightly cooler when I made that hit. I was monitoring everything. I've backtracked and back, forward, left, right, all the data. We're talking intake temperature. We're talking ambient temperature. We're talking supercharger, the heat exchanger temperature, all of that, every ounce of it, tested all of it. And if they were even, the data was even. So any claim that this thing is going to outflow the stock filter, it's just not there, at least not at this boost level. And I'll take that a step farther. The testing was done in roughly 55 to 61 degrees ambient temperature. The car's making good power. It's making great boost, making about 11 pounds of boost, give or take. And you would think that in that scenario, a cotton gauze filter with hardly any pleats that you can straight up see straight through, you would think that this thing would actually offer some performance gain. But the reality is that it doesn't. And here's my speculation on that. Number one, you're dealing with significantly less surface area. And it doesn't matter how much this stuff flows. If it's got to make up 12%, that is a huge divide to try to cover. That delta is pretty wide before you even start messing with the stock filter. And two, you know, you could say, well, what would happen if it was pulleyed or, you know, whatever the case is? It doesn't matter. They're selling this part as it's a performance upgrade to the stock part. I mean, I just got through reading you guys everything that's on the box. It's going to increase. Oh, by the way, fuel mileage didn't get improved at all. I gave the filter every chance that I could to make a dent, and it didn't. What about noise, sound? Did it add any theater to the experience? Really not that I could tell too much. I think the box itself is a little bit of a muffle to that. It might have been a little bit louder with the green filter, but I mean, I don't know. I'm probably grasping at straws here. I am looking forward to the track rental though in January. I will be testing one filter against the other just to see if there's any difference on the drag strip. But if the data has anything to say about any of this, it's that, well, there won't be a difference. And basically, I shelled out the 50 or 60 bucks for the filter and the 16 or 18 bucks for the cleaner kit, basically just to get a green filter for my car. I don't know, Merry Christmas, green and red, right? Anyway, let me get in to see what you guys are up to real quick. Let's see what y'all are up to. Doc Diff is in. Say, what up, B? What's up, Doc? Joe T saying, what up, B Mason? What's up, man? Mike Corleone saying, good evening, Professor. Got the arm flex. I like it. What's up, my friend? William Harmon saying, good evening, Mr. Mason. Good evening, my friend. Let's see. Doc Diff is saying, we're pulling air behind POS fog lights. I like it. Cam Ollie's checking in. JLT. F the world, man. I like it. Let's see. Doc Diff saying, that's my DDSS 5.7 cold air intake. Nice. Joe T saying, I can't wait to see the results. Have you considered testing a full cold air system? Yes, I have. I'll get onto that here in just a second. Want to put one on my 19 Ram, but worried about exposed filter under the hood. It's a good thing to be concerned with. On my car, I am looking to possibly do a test on a true cold air kit for it. AFE is looking to be at the top of that list. Legmaker is too, but the coin's Sun. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna we'll try that Pro 5.0 or whatever it is from JLT potentially. Hey, if they want to send me one for free, I'll be more than happy to test it and get data back to them. Oh, that reminds me. Talking about green filter, I almost forgot about this. And this is something that actually really got underneath my skin. If you look at the back of the stock Hellcat filter, these are proprietary by Mala for Mopar. The normal Mala filter, it does not have this information on it, but it's the same filter. It's easily, you can tell it apart very quickly by the bonding agent on the back. Adds a little bit of rigidity to it. But anyway, all of the Hellcat filters will have the flow data. It's not really going to want to try to do this. Anyway, it's going to have the flow data on the back of it. K&N flow data is also readily available, as is AFE flow data. To give you guys an idea, stock filter flows 610 gallons. It's saying gallons per second. I don't know if I'm reading gallons per second right. But what I will say is this. It's understood that these filters flow right at 1100 CFM. It's actually just shy of that. It's like 1080 CFM at 2 inches of water. The K&N flows 780 at 1.5. Just divide 780 by 0.75 to bring you up to the 2.0. And that'll get you just shy of, like, it's like 1050. AFE's oil filter, it's reading roughly the same. They're all basically flowing the same. If you haven't figured out, there is no, this is what's pissed me off. There's no flow data on this filter. And when I reached out to Green, their product manager responded fairly quickly, as a matter of fact, and said that the flow data for Green filter is proprietary information. Good luck with your test. Seriously. So look, it's proprietary information. From an engineering standpoint, the flow media, there should be MDS reports on this that say, this is what it flows. If I'm putting something together, if I'm putting a combination together, let's say this thing is pulleyed, upper or lower pulley, whatever, but I want to run the stock air box, I'm going to want to run a filter that flows the most. And if I don't have ready access to this and it's just, oh, we'll buy it, try it out and see if it works type of mentality, that's pretty piss poor on the part of Green filter. My other favorite thing is, lots of race car people use Green filter. Let me tell you something about Green filter. Do I need to do it again? I'll go ahead and do it again. You can see through this thing. I can hold this thing up to my face and I can see every aspect of what's going on the screen over here. Yeah, as a race filter, the media itself is probably pretty good, considering the fact that there ain't much of it really to talk about. So by that standard, I don't know that if I took a blowtorch and burned all the cotton gauze out of this thing, if it would flow any less than what it flows with what little filter and filtration media that it's got now. So I suppose you could say that, it's within the company's rights to withhold flow data on a filter, but I think it's hysterical that they would withhold flow data because that's what they do. You got to be kidding me. If coming from an engineering standpoint, if I am putting together a combination that requires X airflow, how can I go to Green Filter and purchase a filter that I can't get actual data on the part that I'm looking to buy? Makes absolutely no sense. And quite frankly, it should be, I'm not going to say criminal, but it should be a reason why you don't purchase that filter at all. The fact that they're not going to tell you what the filter flows, you just got to buy it, install it, and see if the thing works. Listen, there's too much data floating around out there for that type of mentality to actually hold any purchase. So I bought the thing because I figured I would give it a shot. I didn't realize I was going to be, I don't know, basically told that proprietary information be damned. I want to know what the thing flows because I'm putting it in a car that I'm taking to a drag strip. I'm trying to get the best number I can with the combination that I've got. Anyway, I'm beating the horse straight to death. Fact is, they didn't want to give out any flow data, but I can tell you that by the looks of the thing, by the construction of the thing, it looks like a K&N. It looks like the AFE drop-in, pop-in filter. It's going to flow roughly the same. If not, if it flows any more, fantastic. Let's say the thing flows 1100. It's barely more than the stock filter. And you can bet y'all ass that the stock filter is going to filter air considerably better, and it's going to flow plenty, probably up to about, I don't know, 800 horsepower to the rear wheel on a Mustang dyno. So there's that. Anyway, sorry. Back to the questions here. Hang on just a second. Gibbs, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Got $10 to the drag strip testing fund. I do appreciate that. And January the 11th, the track day will be the first. I will have the first car down the track of 2020 this year at my local. So I'm looking forward to that very much. Looking forward to all the participants having a great time at that event as well. Made it a little bit smaller this year than we did last year. I think we got a lot of guys that are actually doing testing at this track rental. And the reason why they're using this opportunity to do the testing is because the DA typically, provided we've got good, good weather, prayers for good weather. But because the DA is so low, it gives a great opportunity for testing of different parts. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing testing of this and possibly a true cold air kit for the car. Let's see. But thank you very much. I appreciate it, R. Gibbs, very much. Getting back to you guys. G-Rock can say, it looks like an AC filter you put in for your home system. Yeah, no kidding, right? I mean, you can see right through the thing. Let's see, Sam saying, I guess I need a new fuel filter. My OG has dropped by 25%. Miles per gallon. Ooh, yeah, check that out for sure. Paul's checking in and saying, BM, what are you launching your car at? Usually around 1300 RPM. Can you let us know where you have the training set to shift in the first 4 gears? Well, yeah. First 4 gears are typically 6250 is what I like to see. If I see somewhere around, a 1% variance as far as when that shift is completed, I'm fine. With that, I just do not spin my cars any higher than 6,300. That's just me. There are some folks that say that I'm leaving a little bit of power on the table. When I had my car on the dyno, yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute too. That was anyway. The car was making power straight to 6,450. In fact, was still climbing at 6,450, but not at a rate that was commensurate with trying to just extract the thing and keep pushing it any farther than that. That dyno graph was just starting to kind of nose over, starting to plateau a little bit. I like to hit the gears with something as heavy as this thing. I like to have the shift points in a place where when the RPM falls back, I've got a nice chunky bit of torque for that, for that next gear to land on. Some guys like to carry the RPM out really far. I'm not a big fan of it because when you carry RPM out too far, you're hemorrhaging torque. So anytime you see horsepower plateau and you go, it's carrying power out to, I don't know, insert a big number. As it's plateauing, you're hemorrhaging torque. When you hit your shift point, there's going to be no torque there for you to hit with. So I don't know. Proof's in the pudding, right? I'm running 1020s with a car making stock boost with very little done to the transmission tune to get it there. I'd say that the results speak for themselves. And if you want to stretch it out any longer, then go for it and see where it lands you. Might find that it picks up a little bit of mile an hour on the back half of the track, but your ET will not improve in the process by that much. At least not by enough. You know, the risk versus reward scenario starts to have a lot of diminishing returns at that point. Sam's saying, man, where can I buy that t-shirt? Actually, I've got another run of shirts that I've got to order up probably after the first of the year. So after the first of the year, hit me up and we'll go from there. But I don't have any left, actually. Canada Guy is saying, how's it going tonight, my Mopar brother? Got the thumbs up. I like it. Canada Guy, it is going great. Thank you for asking. I hope it's going well for you too. Speed Freak 93 saying, good to see you, B. Any plans for Revlon this winter or just racing her? So the plans for, here's the thing. This freaking pterodactyl-ass mosquito. Look at the size of this sumbitch. Look at that. Thing sucked the blood right out of a freaking giraffe. Anyway, getting back to it. Any plans for the car? Not really. Just going to drive it and enjoy it. That's kind of the mission statement of this thing anyway. As you can see, she's rocking her street setup now. And I've been having a ball just taking the thing out and playing with it. And one thing I really did find that was interesting is when I'm not driving the car at the drag strip, just how much fun this thing is to just drive, just as a car, just taking the thing out and hooning around with it. I honestly, it's kind of interesting. I started to not have fun with the car when it was just, let me get a number. Let me see what this thing's going to run. I've got to stage it right. I got to launch it right. What's the tire pressure? What fuel's in the car? All of that kind of stuff. When all of that, I don't know, when all the technicalities and all the academia was stripped away from it, it was just turned into a car again. It started to be a whole lot more fun again. And I mean, I get it. What's not to love about taking the car to the drag strip? Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of data to collect and to mull over. And right now, all the data looks great. Zero knock retard, fuel looks great, stock timing, shift points are dead nuts, especially on the street. I'm just taking the thing out and having a riot with it. So let's see. Ruben's asking, what do you think of Ripa's incognito lower pulley? So I don't mind these, like the who's it's with the 315 upper and now this other one that's like a minor, sort of upgrade. Look, I don't mind them so much, but I don't like the idea that a lot of these folks are marketing them as doesn't need a tune. Doc Diff, chime in on this. So I know that Doc Diff has had quite a bit of experience with a car with some of these, no tune pulleys. And yeah, at your own risk, at least not at sea level. Now, I will say this, if you're playing around at elevations, like if you're in Amarillo, Texas, where you're like at what, 2,800 feet, 2,000 feet, whatever it is. If you're in Colorado, where it's obviously very high altitude, anyway, high desert area, which is gorgeous, by the way. But if you're in those parts of the world, then yeah, you could probably get away with those parts. But I will caution you down by the coast, any sea level, or say up to maybe 1,000 feet. The reason why is during the wintertime. During the wintertime, you start to get into zero DA conditions or mineshaft air, negative DA conditions. That's when things can go very wrong. And when they go very wrong at those speeds, they go very wrong very quickly. You're out beating on the car, thinking that everything is great. You've been told that these parts don't require a tune. Let's just say that they're not too quick to cut you a check for a brand new engine if something goes horrifically wrong. And without that level of support, and they're not going to give you a Hellcat to drive around while your car is getting a new engine installed. Look, guys, I've seen perfectly good, solid, pulleyed cars fail during super low DA conditions, mainly because guys wanted to get that little bit more out of it, and they got that little bit more, and that's what stung them. So at any rate, take that for what it's worth. If it's tuned, and if you're closer to sea level, get it tuned, get it checked out, throw a little bit of fuel at it, whatever. Check your knock sensor sensitivity, but you're going to have to possibly pull a degree of timing out just to be on the safe side. And take everything with a grain of salt with these cars, guys. You have to remember that they're heavy, bit more susceptible to knock because of the weight, the mass, and just the fact that these things are about as aerodynamic as a barn door. You got a lot of things working against you, and you're asking pump gas, 93 octane, to manage a lot of power. As dumb as it sounds to say out, as it just don't, I can't even complete the sentence. Keep that in the back of your mind, caveat emptor, and let the chips fall where they may if you decide to go that route without a tune. Doc Diff's asking, can I send you one? See how well it works on your car? Cold air, that is. I'd love to. Absolutely. Yeah, send it over. Now, keep in mind, it's got to be for a Hellcat because my car does have the mass air setup on it. But yeah, give me a shout tomorrow. We'll chat about it. If you've got one for a Hellcat, love to try it out. Speed Freak 93, speaking of the incognito lower pulley sleeve, what are the effects of the other accessories being run off a larger lower pulley? Any issues or none? My understanding, well, that one is just going to be for the blower. Everything else runs on a separate belt that's actually just inside. So you got your blower belt, and then you've got your accessory drive, so it's not going to affect it. Shouldn't. See, Toxic Hellcat's liking that incognito pulley. I like that stuff too. I think it's kind of neat. I like that somebody's at least trying to think outside of the box a little bit on this stuff. Derek's saying, what up, Play? I'm glad I never tried that green. Thanks for the testing on this and the other products. Jay Green or Diablo Tune? Jay Green in that respect. Jay Green will put you where you need to be. Just, I don't know. It's one of those things where it doesn't really matter what software you're using. Diablo is just the software that you're going to be using. I would always say don't get a canned tune from anybody. Talk to a tuner and listen. One of the first things the tuner is going to ask is what's done to the car, number one, and number two, where do you live? What's the altitude where you live? These are the things that you need to know. Do a little bit of research too before you talk to the tuner as far as what density altitude typically is in January where you live, and fuel quality, things like that. All of that is going to need to be discussed when you talk to the tuner. But yeah, Jay Green's good. Jay's good. Mike OST is good. Obviously, Alex Pikes is very good. There's a lot of folks that are good, but make sure that you're talking to somebody that speaks specifically fluent Mopar. That's the most important part. Derek's asking, do they make thermal plates for the blowers? Kind of, yeah. So it is not Kincaid, but interchiller, not killer chiller, interchiller, makes basically it's a Phalonic spacer for the supercharger. I don't run them, and the jury's a little bit out as far as if their marketing actually has any truth to it. But I do have a buddy that does. In fact, I think he's got every bolt on except for a pulley and headers and stuff like that. He's still running stock manifolds and cats, but everything else he can throw on that thing, it has been thrown on it. And as far as does the supercharger stay cooler? Yeah, a little bit. And this is one of those things where it's how many little bits does it take to make a lot? You'll hear me say that a lot of times. In this situation, yeah, it might be a little bit cooler, the actual the housing itself, but does that matter all that much? And so far, when him and I run each other at the drag strip, Now he's got a much more aggressive tune engine side than I do. I'm still running stock timing, just throwing a little bit of fuel at it just to be a little bit safer than stock. But he's running a bit more timing, a bit more fuel, and his knock sensors are cut way down low. So, but anyway, we run each other and we're dead even at the end of the quarter mile. And he's carrying a little bit more power at the top end. I'm typically stronger through the 8th mile. So a couple of different ways to skin a cat, but yeah, just kind of depends on if you see any real benefit to, you know, having your actual supercharger cooler. There is, but it's not by the amount that you would think. In fact, it's shockingly not by the amount that you would think it would be based on the cost and the pain in the ass to do the job. There's that. But if you want every ounce of benefit that you can get by having a cooler hat, whatever that benefit is, check it out. Inner Chiller, I believe, is who makes that. Let's see. Carzilla saying Royal Purple oil will cool that cat down a lot. No, it won't. Actually, Royal Purple has not done too well in testing here lately. Back in the day, Royal Purple was actually some really good stuff, but of late, UOAs have not looked too good on that product. Hopefully, they're getting their stuff turned around. I've seen the best UOAs, Universal Oil Analysis. Most people use Blackstone Labs. Pennzoil is on the top of that list. Amsoil has been showing some signs as well of being a very good oil for these cars. Mobil One has been shown to be a very good oil for these cars. And most guys typically will change the oil in these things. If we're taking to the drag strip, we're changing them about every 1,500 to 2,500 miles anyway. So we're basically flushing the system on a regular basis, especially if you have to drive them any real length to get anywhere. So if the question is oil, just as long as it's synthetic, it will be A-okay. R. Gibbs asking, any worthwhile intake side mods for an NA392 shaker? Ported manifold. Well, ported manifold, yes. But I would say go with a peak speed. I won't start doing manifolds again until March. So there's that to consider. I do port manifolds, but I do them more like a boutique type service. And it takes me forever to port one. But they're usually pretty good when I get done with them. The main thing when it comes to porting the manifold is that you're only going to get as good of a job, or the amount of power you're going to get out of a ported manifold depends on the manifold that you're starting off with. There is a ton of core shift with the 392 manifolds because it's a 3-piece design. So think of it like a clamshell design, all that comes together. Well, if the top lid is this way a little bit more, or the bottom lid is shifted this way a little bit more, you get a whole bunch of funky going on with that thing. You know, it's like trying to line up a club sandwich. You got all the shit in the middle and it just kind of slides around. Got avocados squirting out, landing in your crotch and all this. Anyway, that's how that whole thing is coming together. So I'll put it to you like this. In fact, my good buddy Rob Pan's got this intake on his car right now. It's one of the intakes that I had worked on for my own personal 392. And I went in and, man, I hogged this thing out, opened it up as much as I could on the runner side. But this thing was so jacked up from the factory that I figured that if I can make this intake manifold make power, I can make any intake manifold make power. And all of them, anyway, the bottom line is that they have a lot of core shift and they have a lot of casting flash. Each one's a little bit different. The trucks are actually a little bit worse than the cars, and the 392s are just real hit and miss. Anyway, long story short, yes, you can. I like the throat profile on the peak speed more than I do the MMX. So if I'm gonna say order this ported manifold, go with the peak speed, and that's the one that I would say I would pick aside from one of my intakes. And as far as how much power do you pick up, it depends on your stock manifold. But I would say go with a true through-ported 84 millimeter throttle body or a dedicated billet style 84 millimeter throttle body. That's going to be the throat itself on the 392 intake is the limiting factor on that. Sam's saying his 05 Ram just hit 295K. That is awesome. Carzilla saying oil filters are measured in microns. That is correct. Multiple Mopars in a hazy. What's up, my brother? 6450 is where it flatlines. Not much point going over that. So that's what we're talking about, RPM. And like I say, mine on the dyno, it was just starting to crest at 64, right at 6,400, 64 and a quarter. And I just wasn't going to drive it any harder than that. But again, my shift point's significantly lower only because it's just what the car seems to like, I guess. You know, I could probably carry out fifth gear a little bit, but maybe pick up a little bit of mile an hour on the big end, keep it from shifting. But right now, before the trap. So right now it's shifting just a little bit before it goes to the traps. It's like shift bang. I mean, it's right there at the traps. I don't know. I might stretch it out just a little bit, but we'll see. Mopar is saying torque friction gets serious too. Yes. Yeah, it does. What's funny, speaking of torque friction, so we talk about Mopars all being snowflakes with the different operating systems. If my torque loss table was zeroed out, my car would flake out at 5,600 RPM. You could zero that torque table out in earlier cars and it would actually help it shift a little bit better. Basically, I think it would end up by default just commanding slightly more line pressure. In my car, it just flaked out. It hated it. So yeah, they're all a little bit different. But yeah, there's no reason to turn these things up too high. Let's see. Dr. Dev saying knock, knock, knock. Yeah, no kidding, right? Knock, knock. Bolt Mopar saying anytime you change pulleys, you need a tune. Your fuel trims can and will change. And that's the thing. Hey, Multi, what do you think about that? I mean, people talking about hardware that doesn't require a tune, yet it's drawing in more air. It's making more power. I think what the funny thing is that they're following the table. They're following the spark table. And they're looking at an injector duty cycle and they're thinking, well, there's overhead here. We've got some room to play with. And the reality is that it's really not like that. I mean, it is, but it's not. See, walk with me a little bit. Whenever you've got overhang that way, what it basically is doing is it's the whole reason why, you see archers when they let an arrow go, you'll see them like it's part of the form to they just drop it because of drop the bow because the tension that they have on the draw, let it go and they'll drop the bow. You'll see golf players, why do you do all this follow through action? You've already hit the ball. What's the point? It's kind of the same thing. I'm really butchering this, but anyway, it's kind of the same thing in that table. It's there if the car hits a very low DA, it's got somewhere to carry over to. There is a backside to that table, but it's never expected to ever use the backside of that table. It's almost like follow through. It's there if it needed it, but that's like war emergency power type of a situation for the timing values that you're dealing with, or for the fueling that you're dealing with. High and low slopes, things like that, fuel quality, all of that notwithstanding, because those are some variables that can interchange between tanks of gas and from run to run on injectors. So it's just kind of there. And again, I know I'm kind of screwing this up, but the way that I see that is those parts of that table are there to cover variances in map sensors, in fuel injectors, in other secondary parts of the vehicle that are needed to give the computer information and data. So in saying all of that, yeah, I guess there's some headroom in the tune, but the entire table needs to be tuned, not just the area, that the airflow that you're seeing on the data logs that you get. Does that make any sense? It sounded like it didn't make any sense when I was saying it. Anyway, hopefully it's understood though that what you're really talking about here is you're talking about a part that could potentially create a situation that costs you thousands upon thousands of dollars, a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, and you're relying on a company. And by the way, that part costs a grand, let's say it's $1,000, but you could potentially cause $15,000 worth of damage with it. The risk to reward ratio is not very good there. That's a bad bet. So anyway, anytime you switch pulleys, it doesn't matter what the pulley is, the car has got to be retuned. And that's just the way that it is. So I think that it's a bit irresponsible to offer a part and say that you can install this part that's going to make more power and not require a tune without understanding really what's going on from an engineering standpoint. So anyway, let's see. Dr. Div saying need to pull fuel. Is that what you're saying? I'm bouncing over here. Bobo's asking, so is the green filter better than K&N or AFE? I'll say it's on par with it. I won't say that it's better, and I can't say that it's better. They being green filter, refused to give me any flow data. And what the understanding would be, look, I just need to know for every square centimeter, how much air is going to flow through that thing at some agreed to value. 2 inches of water, 28 inches of mercury, 30 inches of mercury, something. I need something that I can convert mathematically into at least some type of a narrative that I can compare this filter with the stock filter versus a K&N or AFE and so on and so on. So in that respect, I'll say that it sucks by comparison because I can't tell you what the thing flows. But what I can tell you is that per the data, it didn't flow any better than the stock filter. Found that to be weird, at least not at my power level and not in my stock air box. Let's see. Dr. Div saying, oh, he's talking about and delete check engine light for over boost code or over post code. Wigging out on me here. Hang on just a second. Multi's saying we did go 10.07 on pump gas last weekend. That's what's up, man. Yeah, I know. I saw that, by the way. Looking good in the process, as always. Looking forward to seeing you in January. By the way, David's car just went 10.0s, by the way. So it should be pretty sweet seeing those two go down the drag strip together. But that will be a shellacking on my part if he and I wind up grabbing lanes, because that red eye is fast as hell. Done a great job with that one, brother. Looks fantastic. Bo was saying 91 Pistain in California, saying he's coming out of Sacktown. I like it. I used to live in San Francisco myself, man. I miss California. And Shawnee's checking in saying, good evening, Brian. Any plans for the Hellcat in the next 4.5 weeks? Just getting excited for the 11th. Man, yeah, like I was saying, probably not. I'm not going to be doing too much with the car. She's already done. I'm just driving it, having a ball. I cannot imagine having any more fun with the car than I'm having right now, and I'm going to keep doing that. That is fun. You know, the combination seems to be working well. I got multiple Mopars checking in with his Red Eye drive shaft, which is the absolute best mod I can't thank you enough. Best mod ever for the Hellcat platform. The car is busting out 149, 148, 60 foots with that big old heavy stock drive shaft or stock Red Eye drive shaft. That along with the drag pack, the rear seat delete, and that's it. Car's doing great, so can't complain. And I'm going to leave it that way. And in fact, I'll be running her on good old fashioned Bucky's 93 at the track rental. So we're going to see what we can get out of her in that respect. And then if I've got to, I might just spool it up a little bit with some 110, but I doubt it very seriously. I think we're just going to keep her on 93 and have a ball with her. Hey, Sean, thank you very much. Rebel was good through the windows. Throw the windows. Yeah, I know. She needs a tent. It's coming, man. It's coming. I promise. Let's see. Mr. 76 Aspen. Weird question. How much CFM would each cylinder acquire with a 5.7 individual carburetors? Well, it'll pull whatever the intake manifold would allow it to draw at whatever RPM that we are discussing the CFM. It's going to depend on runner length, runner diameter, runner shape. So it won't do any better than what it's got now, I'll tell you that. Dr. Diff saying, I need to get onto that good Mopar tuners list. You're on it, brother. If y'all are in the area, give him a holler. Dr. Differential. Get your car tuned up just right. Also, look to Dr. Differential for any of your camshaft needs as well. He's got himself a nice catalog of camshafts tailor-made for the Hemi platform. Shawnee's saying, maybe it's an illusion that they look darker. Oh, that they look darker. Oh, yeah, they are not any darker. I'll tell you that right now. Let's see. Mr. 76 Aspen's is asking, and is there anything I should know about MSDS Hemi 6 box or the Hemi? They don't run knock sensors. Is that a problem? If you run anything nowadays without having knock sensors, it's a bit of a problem. Okay, so look, the modern NA stuff has gotten to the point now where you pretty much have to run knock sensors because of fuel quality. They're all high compression. They're all very high velocity runner designs. The Hemi's got a tumble port head design, but the intake manifold is doing everything it can to promote velocity. So because of that, and because of the camshaft profile, which has a very wide lobe separation angle and is variable, it's variable timing, which means it's going to be very advanced with the stock camshaft. You're trying to build a lot of cylinder pressure. It's just better to have something with knock sensors, in my humble opinion. You can get away without them, don't get me wrong, but modern day stuff, if it's a car for the street, do it. If it's a race car, don't worry about it. Destroyer Scat saying, I need some work on my club sandwich. Man, my club sandwich game is strong. It's on point. Derek saying, how long of a bit do you use the runners? Oh, so do I use for the runners? So I use a variety of different bits for the runners, but I typically use a normal cartridge roll. I use a tapered bit. Let me think about this. I use a normal cartridge roll, a mini cartridge roll, a tapered bit, actually two different tapered bits. And I've got a rat tail, and typically I've got my Dremel strapped over my back, and I've got the rat tail coming around my neck. And so when I'm actually doing the porting on my workbench sits at about chest level. I'll have the manifold flipped over, and when I'm working the ports themselves, I'm able to get pretty far into there with that rat tail. And I'll have my glasses on, my breather, and everything else, and fans and everything else, because it is a mess when you're doing those manifolds. One of the reasons why I don't like doing them that much is because they just send shit flying everywhere. Top tip, by the way, if you guys are working on manifolds or thinking about working on manifolds, make sure that you've got plenty of ventilation. Wear your breathers, wear your glasses, wear all of that, and take care of yourself. It's extremely important that you do so. Let's see. Dr. Diff saying, my intake Brian did for me was one of the best things I've done. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it was funny, interesting too. That particular intake, needed a lot of work. And that's just another example of, how casting flash being in those runners can actually hurt performance. And so, and I'm always surprised. It's funny because some intakes are super clean. Like clean. And what I'll do is I go in, remove any harsh edges, make sure everything flows smoothly. Basically, I'm more or less blueprinting the intake manifold to flow what the engineers would have expected the flow to be for that particular intake runner. And other times, man, I get in there, I got core shift, I got big old nasty boogers of casting flash all inside of the thing. I've got adhesives, all kinds of crap. So, it's funny, people go, oh, it's a factory freak. Actually, no, it's not that it's a factory freak. It just runs the way that the factory wanted it to run from the factory. Some of those intakes are brutal. Talking about under boost also, absolutely. And Dr. Diff is offering the billet 85 millimeter throttle bodies now. I like it. Arthur's checking in and saying, just here soaking up some info. Salute me, Mason. Got the arm flex. I like it. Salute to you. Molten Mopar saying, I think they're playing a very dangerous game or irresponsible game with words and open themselves to a possible civil or legal issue. Nothing should be marketed as bulletproof in the performance industry. I have nothing against any of the companies doing it, just his 2 cents. Also going on to say anything that has potential to change air mass per cylinder has the potential to cause issues without tuning. It's 100% accurate. And, I'll take that a step farther. To me, it creates some secondary risk factors that maybe these folks aren't really considering coming into this. What works on a dyno doesn't work on the street. It's one of those things where you don't want to get too, you never want to think that you figured something out, that you've kind of slid in under the radar with one of these types of claims, because there's some secondary risks that are involved. So you window a motor, okay? So that is bad enough as it sits, but what happens if you window the block, oil gets on everything underneath the car, something catches on fire, and now you've got a real problem on your hands. I've actually had that happen, so I'm not speaking out of turn here. You're not talking about just replacing an engine. You're talking about replacing wiring. You're talking about what the thing burns to the ground. I mean, there's some things that can happen. And again, these are extreme scenarios. Oh my goodness, you're telling us that the sky is falling and nothing's even happened yet. That's true, but you've got to run the course. We're having a mind, a thought experiment here. You've got to carry the thought experiment to its absolute worst case scenario. And again, that's part of the risk reward calculation. And in this case, burning a car to the ground, throwing oil on the ground, having the back tires hit the said oil, car slides out, wrecks, car's on fire, you got a barbecue, people are running around screaming and yelling. That's a bad look. You don't want to be caught in that situation. I'm not saying that's going to happen with these parts, but it's an over dramatization with an illustration that says that if you're going to offer a part that does not require a tune, if the tune could have made that car safer, then you need to put that in the literature. Works best with the tune. In certain conditions, lay out the caveat, the part can be used with no tune. But even then, you don't want to open that up to interpretation. People like to try to find loopholes with everything, and they'll run straight at that type of an issue if the problems do arise. So anyway, getting back to it. Dr. Div saying boost the overboost code. Absolutely. Sean E is checking in saying, so far so good with the new DSS aluminum one-piece drive shaft, no vibration. I like it. Shawnee's asking, do I have a preference of speed density or over mass air or vice versa? Not really. The older systems were a little bit easier to tune-ish with the mass air. But speed density, you can basically get there. You just have to tell the computer a little bit more parameters. A lot of it just has to do with volumetric efficiency tables. But, think of the volumetric efficiency table as your math curve, and that'll kind of get you where you need to be. I mean, it's more or less the same. it's the same information just told in a different way. So, but if you get comfortable with one, you're comfortable with it. So I started out with mass air and more or less transitioned into speed density or neural network with the Mopars. But there's guys that are a hell of a lot better than I am at tuning these things. Doc Diff, multiple Mopars, who's written the book on these things, knows a lot about this stuff too. Alex Pikes, these guys have been in and around this stuff and have played with some pretty insane combinations. They're going to get there one way or another, and it's typically just whatever you're using and what you're comfortable with. Paul's asking, how did the 60-foot times change with the 309s? Boy, they got a lot better, let me tell you. I'm upset if the car goes into the 1.6 range. I'm kind of spoiled here with a bunch of 158, 155, 60 foots. When the air is good, when the air is just god awful, the car will still run, 159, 160s. So to compare that, 161 would have been really good with the 262s. I got some 150s before that, but they're considerably better. The thing I like about the 309 is it just carries RPM on the big end of the track. So you get a better 60 foot and you get a better mile an hour with the 309s. It's kind of a win-win. Oh, Sean, he's checking in saying, I noticed a little better 60 foot with the 309, but what I really noticed was the mile per hour in the 8th mile and in the quarter. Absolutely. Multi saying when we blew at the half mile, it was an oil down at 149 miles an hour. Jesus, that's spooky. Phallus Rex checking in saying everyone here wanting Dodge to announce a 426, and I'm here wishing they would announce a slat 6. Dude, you're kind of in the same ballpark I'm in. I'm actually would kind of hope for a turbo inline 6, but same value nonetheless. Multi saying could have easily been a crash. Absolutely, and that's what we were talking about. We don't want to see a situation where somebody gets hurt, and that's the tough part. Sean E checking in saying, I appreciate that. I should have unlocked PCM in 1 week. Excited. Very nice. Be careful of that thing, Multi. Damn. And Dr. Div saying, yes, hands down, it needs a tune. Doc Div's asking a question, is E85 clear and E98 yellow Ignite brand? I think that is accurate. Multi saying, I like the neural network, so safe if left in place. Very true. Just change VE, that's it. Shawnee, oh yeah, thank you, Shawnee, appreciate that. Bob Fish is saying, my DSS drive shaft called my rear end to go out after a couple hundred miles. Launches or burnouts? 0 launches. Anybody want to buy one half off? Yeah, that could have been the case. We're out there wailing on it, though. I don't know. Let me ask you something. Was it vibrating its ass off? Canada guy checking in saying, not really racing talk, but have been looking at getting an early Charger RT, chopping the lid off and throwing on some 69 Charger sheet metal I would have to shorten the car 3 inches, though. LX platform. That sounds like a pretty involved project. You guys have some long winters up there, brother. I don't know. I would be interested to see how that would come together. Might be fun, actually, now that you're writing it down. Mr. 76 Aspen, 06 Charger RT with 5.7 Hemi is heavy. Is the cars are, if only thing you could change was the gear ratio, what ratio would you get for the quarter mile best time you would think? For an 06, I'd probably throw a 370 in it. I mean, it's a NAG 1 car, 3.7. It's going to be pricey, but that's probably the route that I would go. That's the Gatrag rear end, by the way. And Doc Diff, you might know this more than I would. If that gear, I think that rear end is serviceable. There might be an actual 370 ratio available for it, but I'm not sure. Check on that. I would look into that. Doc Diff saying, I bought a barrel of E85 Ignite and it's clear, but tests higher. I know that the Ignite does test a little bit higher. I've heard that before. Bob Fish saying, no vibrations whatsoever, never went over 50 miles an hour. Well, if your wheel speed is 130, that might be a different story. If you're only going 50. But that's interesting. Poser saying, how do you feel about the stock fuel rails on the Hellcats? At any point, would you upgrade with aftermarket? Yeah, I would upgrade if you are going to be going like a 275 upper with a 10% lower. I'd go with, well, no, even that'll be fine with stock Hellcat fuel rails. It just depends on the amount of pressure that you're running through them. I have seen Injected Engineering twin pump kits are managing 10% lower with a 275 upper pretty well. I think any more aggressive than that, and I would go with a set of 4 rails with a triple hat setup. You're going to be running E85 more than likely at that point anyway. Race gas is just not really the thing there at that point. But yeah, if you're running E85, then I would say go with the 4 kit and call it good. You're going to need the extra reserve because you're using 30-40% more fuel. Bull Mopar saying, so ready for next month, my man. I am itching already for next month. Me too. Let's see. Shawnee's giving Bob some business. Dr. Div saying, yes, there is, but I'm not a supplier for those gears yet. You might want to jump on that, brother, because there's about to be a flood of people calling you up looking for 370 gears for their Nag 1 cars. There should already be. Shawnee's saying, you think I can make 0.2 of a second quicker with Innovators West lower and a trans tune? Yeah, you can do that with just a trans tune, or at least very close to it. Innovators West lower will get you about 9% on the boost, like a 9% larger pulley. That with a trans tune, you'd probably pick up, I'd say 3.5 tenths. Phallus Rex. I know a lot of car guys worship the almighty manual transmission, but how good are the sequential transmissions? They're fantastic, provided you're not throwing a ton of torque at them and not trying to launch them to the moon. At least that's been their track record, man. I mean, look at what's got sequential transmissions and look at what they go through if you're driving around on a daily basis. Some of the newer ones, like the GTIs and cars like that, they do very well with that type of transmission because that engine doesn't make a ton of torque. It does great on a road course because you're not launching the car. You're not overcoming 4,000 pounds worth of inertia with the clutches. You're just running the car through shifting gears. In that environment, it's perfect. It's great. It's fantastic. Whatever. But from a drag racing perspective, where you're launching the car and running at full throttle for the amount of time that you're running the car at full throttle and shifting and hitting these clutches over and over and over again, I don't know if it'll last very long. I don't know. I can only tell you that if you look at cars that make a lot of power, how often they have to change out their clutches, it's a lot. Anything that is coming out of Italy with a sequential gearbox will know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of the guys with those cars get 20, maybe 30,000 miles out of those clutches. They're expensive as hell to replace. So we'll see. I don't know. I like them for what they're designed to do, but for the stuff that I like to do, not really. And they're not very practical for the street. And a lot of them, I'm sure that things have changed, by the way. So don't take this out of turn, but I know that the older ones were really crappy feeling to drive. It was one of the things that really turned me off. I drove a couple of BMWs with their SMG setups, and it was not very confidence inspiring. Let me just put it that way. It's just real. It felt like it felt like the driving experience was that you were riding with somebody that that was driving a manual transmission. It wasn't like you were really in control of it. It's just, and it wasn't very smooth. It was just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's something that you get used to, obviously, but it's not something that you don't want to have to get used to anything. You want it to be good from the day that you buy it. You want to be cool with it from day one, not have some kind of learning curve in the mix there. Mopar saying, I swapped the rails with supercharger upgrade. I think the stocks are fine and will flow for about anything you can safely drive the stock supercharger to. It's a good point. And actually, it's a great point. So yeah, if you're running the stock supercharger, chances are you're good to go with your stock rails. And again, we've made a lot of power. A lot of guys have made a lot of power with the stock rails. The one thing I would say is just, I don't know, have a set of the newer rails on the ready. Not that they're any different, but the rails come with the fuel pressure sensor. If you're going to be running the stock rails, that fuel pressure sensor, if it hasn't gone out, it'll go out soon. The newer ones, they're better. I guess they last a lot longer, but yeah, that fuel pressure sensor, when it goes out, the car is going to feel like it just threw about 3 rods. It's not very cool. Because when the computer sees that, it goes into full-on freak out mode. Pumps go to full duty cycle, and so do the injectors. It runs like dog shit. So, yeah, fun stuff. Bob's saying, nope, just a crunch. He had a problem with his drive shaft. DSS said, yeah, I know it. Hey, Mopar is saying we have a sequentially shifted T56 going into TA. We will see what it's made of. Yeah, that ought to be pretty badass. Can't wait to see that one go down the track, by the way. Shawnee's saying everybody go see Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah, support those that are supporting the lifestyle instead of superheroes every other week, no doubt. Let's see. Oh, Bob's just saying if the story was off, it was because he had shoulder surgery. He only drove his car to the doctor. Now, I understand that. I think Sean's just giving you some business, brother. Sean's asking, do I need to change plugs with the Innovators West upgrade? I don't think you do. There's not really that much boost to glean from it, but I think the car comes with 6s. I would probably maybe go to 7s, but I don't know. I think you'll be okay with what you got. Canada is just not that much of a boost gain. Canada guy's saying, do you know of any brake kits that would allow a 15-inch rim front and back? Not looking just yet, just getting some ideas. Yeah, so Willwood makes a brake kit. It's the only one that I know of off the top of my head that would allow for 15s. But yeah, check out Willwood. They make a race brake kit for the Hellcats, and if memory serves me correctly. However, I don't recommend it for street use. They're not very robust. They're designed to be very lightweight, and they're designed to slow the car down from about 150, 160, 170, whatever miles an hour. But they're really not set up for street use, just the rigors of, street use. All right. So just know that coming into it. And again, buyer beware on stuff like that. You start throwing aftermarket parts at the car, it is going to upset potentially the brake balance. So just know that coming into it. But I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. I think there's a lot of guys actually running that kit, and they're saying that it works out pretty well. So, some of my mother henning could be a little bit overblown, but just to be on the safe side, know that coming into it. Besides, you got to remember, you're weighing about 4,500 pounds from about 125 to 135 if you've got stock pulleys or, stock pulley in a tune with a little bit of weight reduction. So there's that to consider as well. I would say that, just be careful in that respect. Mopar is checking out, saying I'm out, buddy. Had to stop in and visit. Gonna crash, my man. Good seeing you, brother. Thank you all very much for hanging out. Thank you very much for hanging out. Looking forward to seeing you in January. If I don't talk to you before then. Congrats on the 10-0s too, by the way. Let's see. Phallus Rex in here saying, I already saw Ford versus Ferrari. My brother and I were the only non-boomers in the theater. That's pretty funny. Johnny's hollering out at multiple Mopars. And Jerry is saying, do you think the new 392 would benefit from an open airbox since it has the Hellcat hood? No, actually, you got to remember the Hellcat hood, the vents are there as heat extractors. So if they're heat extractors, there's two things going on. You have a negative pressure on the top side of that vent, which is helping to draw air out under speed. And also there's hot air going through that area to get out. So no, not really. Let's see. Now, if it had, I mean, it'd be great if they would put the red-eye hood on those things. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. You could always convert it to a red-eye type of a setup if you wanted to. So there's that. But I wouldn't really worry too much about, the vents or the vents actually helping you out all that much. They really don't. And again, that's one of the reasons why they put the sealed setup on those cars. Aside from, needing to have a sealed enclosure, they just don't really do any better with that vent being there. Make a little bit of noise though. Let's see. Johnny is checking out. We'll see you on the other side, my friend. R. Gibbs saying, will a Shaker 392 with a ported intake manifold benefit from a throttle body? Yeah, I mean, a ported throttle body for sure, a true through ported throttle body, I should say. Not just some thing with the stock throttle blade, just forget about that. It's hogwash. I would say that you're a lot better off running, again, a true through ported throttle body with a very well ported intake manifold. Again, Peak Speed is a good place to go. They do a great job. Takes them a little bit longer, but they are a good place to get your intake ported. Dr. Div saying, cam swap it. I got a guy for that. Yeah, you do. Bob Fish saying, so glad they put the red-eye hood and the cold air on the 19 Hellcat. Yeah, that does look good, man. I got to admit. I like the look of it. And it performs well. So Phallus Rex is talking about, I don't know if anybody shares a feeling, but the Gladiator looks really great. Hella sexy, just wish it had a 5.7. That's true of any of the Jeeps, man. If you've ever driven any of those things, and it's great that they got the 8-speed now, but man, I got to tell you, they need a little bit more oomph. It's just tough for me to swallow a V6 and something that weighs that much. Can't really see it getting the job done, and there's got to be something better out there. And if not a 5.7, maybe some supercharged variety of the V6 of anything would be great. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Shawnee's checking in with that Fastman throttle body, making about 6 or 7 horsepower in his car. I love the Fastman throttle body. I mean, I don't get paid by them to talk about their product, but I'll tell you, every time I've installed a Fastman product, it's done really well. So there's that to consider. R. Gibbs is saying, what is through port exactly? Sorry. So on the throttle bodies, you've got a through port or true through port means that the throttle blade, the actual blade itself, in that bore is bigger. Their MMX was selling a throttle body that had basically it was kind of weird. Just the walls of the throttle body were opened up, but the blade wasn't any bigger. Not sure about that. Anyway, for whatever it's worth, that didn't work. And so anyway, if you get Fastman, what Fastman does, he takes a stock throttle body, blows it apart, and it's machined, the inner part of the throttle body is machined just where the blade, and he puts a different size blade in it to where the whole thing is just slightly bigger. Goes from 80 to 84 millimeter. It's kind of the sweet spot for the 6.4 guys. So he does the same with the Hellcats as well, opens those up. So again, something to consider if you're going to go bigger, and it's a stock piece. So, you get the stock functionality of stock throttle body motor, all of that good stuff. Like I say, I had good results with it, so I was really happy with mine. And its new owner is very happy with it as well. Let's see. Mr. 76 is asking, 06 Hemi Charger with an old school 727. What stall converter would you think I would need due to the weight of the car stock power output? I wouldn't put a 727 in a car that already has a 5-speed automatic in it, but if for some reason I did find myself in that situation, I would go with a 3,200 RPM stall. Bob is asking, how about the new diesel? Waiting to see some results with it, but so far a lot of people, man, look, a lot of folks love the old Eco Diesel. So if it's me talking about it, I would say that it's doing really well. And for the guys that like the diesel, they like that. They don't need the horsepower, but they do a lot of highway cruising, a lot of highway towing. I've heard some great things about that engine and that combination. So, it's like a match made in heaven. I think it's a little bit more powerful now, and it's cleaner. So at least there's that. I'm being asked now, Phallus Rex, B. Mason, how excited are you about the new Bronco? I'd be a lot more excited if it wasn't built on the Ranger platform. We'll see. I'm on a wait and see attitude with the Bronco, because Bronco to me means something different. It means a half-ton chassis with a V8 that you can launch off of sand dunes, and that you can just bash on. Bronco is something a little bit different. I think what they're releasing is more of a lifestyle type vehicle. I don't know, the original J40 in a way, maybe H2-ish. I don't know. It's a little bit too boomer bait for me, and I don't really like to use that term very often, but that's kind of the gist. That's the vibe that I'm sensing here. Anyway, if they do a good job with it, then fantastic. And I'll eat those words, and I hope so. I mean, I got the Cholula waiting, but the reality is that I just think it's going to be boomer bait, bro. And until I see the final product, I'm just going to have to take a wait and see attitude. Dollar Power's checking in. Say hello, Mr. Mason. Hello, Don. Derek saying, ever heard of any drive shaft solutions for solid rear end cars? I've got a 6.2 with the HP 90 going in my 70 Dart. Actually, yeah. DSS, I think, can make you a drive shaft for that exact setup. Give them a shout. I think it was DSS, or was it G-Force? Either DSS or G-Force can actually custom make you a drive shaft. And I think they have made drive shafts for that combination. So check that out. And hey, it's a solid rear axle, so at least you'll be dealing with a regular, normal, good old-fashioned geometry on that deal as opposed to these Hellcats. I think you'll be good with that. Should be a lot of fun too, by the way. Mr. 76 saying, thank you for asking all my weird questions. Not a problem, man. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Paul saying, why do the 15 to 17s run faster than the 18s? I've done everything you have except the 309s. DA for my best run was 2,800, went 11 flat at 127. That is actually not a bad number, all things considered. I mean, look, your best DA was 2,800. Even on, like say, drag radials, non-drag pack, and at full weight, 11 flat at $127 at that DA is about within the noise of what all the Hellcats run. So, we've got the added benefit of being able to run in deep DAs down here. And because of that, we're able to extract a little bit better numbers out of the car. But, when it really comes down to it, all things considered, in good DA, you still have a 10-second car no matter what. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But I don't know. I can tell you that the red line red cars are always fastest. And that's just a proven fact. It's the way that it is. I mean, you can look that up. It's in the dictionary, I think. Oh, man. But no, seriously, though, you're in good company, man. Don't think that your car is underperforming. It's absolutely not, brother. Trust me on that. In fact, the very first pass my car ever ran was on, actually it was on the setup that's on it now, and it went 11.0, and then immediately I hot lapped it because I couldn't believe I launched it so soft, and it went a 1090. But that was in pretty good DA, so there's that to consider. And then from there, she just got quicker. Canada guys checking out saying, well, dude, you have a good night. Got to study for my exams. College life. Man, I hear that. Good luck. Get that learn on, man. Skull up. Do it now. You'll wish you had done it later. Trust me. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, Paul, you should be running somewhere in the high 10s. It kind of depends on his setup, man. Not necessarily. 11.0s, like I say, are within the noise on these cars. Dr. Dove saying, about the throttle body question, go check out all the ones I sent you to your phone that I offer. Nice made billet unit. I will check those out when we get done here, my brother. R. Gibbs and Boomer Bait made me laugh. Tell me that isn't what FCA is doing, keeping the Challenger the same since 2008. What do you think? Paul saying, Sean, I know I'm so confused. OST tune, but the track here in Phoenix won't be open until January 24th. You'll get there, man. Don't sweat it. Mr. 76 asked, man, what do you think about the Tesla truck they came out with? Looks like more of a UFO than a truck. I don't think that you can make something that is that shape. And like, there's got to be like, there's some regulations. I think that it's just a concept car, man. Don't get too far ahead. Don't put the cart too far ahead of the horse, or the horse too far ahead of the cart, or on top of the cart, or don't run the horse over with the cart. I don't know on that deal, because look, man, to be honest with you, stuff that is that shape would be difficult for pedestrian safety, for bumper height issues, things like that. But I think the concept, the idea is good, you know, and Tesla does a good job with the stuff that he's putting out, so that they're putting out. So you can't really say that it's a bad idea. I just think that it was sold in a silly way. But hey, look, if it sells, it sells. I think the price is a little bit high for what it is, but it's going to be like that with any new technology. Early adopters are going to be the ones that are going to be shouldering the brunt of that. And you might say, well, electric cars aren't anything new. At least Tesla's not. Well, that's true, but cooling the type of kilowatts to get that much weight and to tow with that much weight reliably, that is kind of new territory. So it's still going to be more of the same, but it's going to require a lot more cooling, a lot more durable parts. We'll see. Again, I'll reserve judgment until the final contraption hits the world. But I did think it was an interesting look, and if nothing else, I like the fact that it's the Cyber truck and it's got a name. It's not just the Tesla truck. It's got a bit more, I don't know. There's some level of panache going on there, I guess. I don't know. I got a tickle out of it, if nothing else. Let's see. Fellas Rex, I know you're really experienced with drag strips, but do they have any experience with drag racing on a dry lake bed? Never done it, always wanted to do it. They host drag events near me in a dry lake bed. What kind of things should I expect? So a few things. Dry lakes, obviously, very low traction. The cool thing about dry lakes is that they favor lower power cars in some respects. It's obviously not a smooth surface. I've seen the old dry lakes. I've seen the old coast races, coastal races as well. Just kind of neat things to look at and watch. If you give it a shot, just put it on YouTube. That's all I can say. I want to watch it. Let's see. Cody's asking, hey, B, by any chance do you know the inlet size in millimeters of the Hellcat snout intake? I believe it is 95 millimeters. Is what the snout is. I think it's exactly 95 millimeters, if memory serves me correctly. Shawnee was saying my stock redline red went 16, red 16 went 1088, 127 full weight, 162, 2300 DA. Very nice. Thomas saying, do you tune and where are you located? I am not tuning anything that isn't my own car, but I am in Texas and there are a ton of guys that can help you out no matter where you are, whether it's Pipes Performance, Mike over at OST, Duster Off, Dr. Differential is in there. There's a lot of guys that can help you out. It just depends on where you are and what lengths you are willing to take to get your car to a place to have it tuned in person or over the interwebs through the magic of all of that. That can be a bit taxing. I'll just say that. But the reason why I don't tune is because I'm not in business to tune, and I don't have time to keep up with a lot of the different nuances and updates and things like that. The different operating systems from Mopar, you have to, that's why you've got to deal with somebody who speaks fluent Mopar, because there's always some slight little difference that is a running line change that can actually make a big difference. It just depends on what it is, but sometimes they're pretty benign. Other times it's a pretty significant issue that you have to deal with some of the running line changes. All right. Let's see. Let me get through some more of these guys, and then I've got to bounce. We're coming up on right at an hour and a half. Let's see. Coda's asking Sean E. Coda's asking Sean about his 8th mile. Paul saying, guys, I went 11,009 at 127 with 162 60 foot with a drag pack. Very nice. Coda's saying, thank you, Pete. Thank you very much. Shawnee's saying I run 1050s at 131 now with the drag pack. Yes, sir, you do. Sean's hanging out with Paul here. Mr. 76 saying I may have missed it because I came in late. Why is the air intake off a Little Miss Redline? Well, the reason why, you have to come back and check the first part of the video. I go on a bit of a rant about this. Did some testing with the green filter, and the results may surprise you. That's right, folks. No, check out the first part of the video. It'll kind of illustrate some of the things that I was testing and what the results were. And basically, in a nutshell, it wasn't any different than stock filter. But I do go on a bit of a rant. It's kind of fun to play with and watch that. So check that out when you get some free time. I think you'll like it. Dollar Power saying, do you know the date for engine ID on valve cover Hemi? That is talking about so I'm not sure. There's some running line changes, I believe, that are done at the factory to where the build, some of the builds I think are not in sequence. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really studied into that too much because I had heard of so some 5.7s get built, some 6.4, some 6.2, 5.7. And so there's not like you can't really say it's the X numberth engine that was built that year. That's kind of the way it was explained to me. Like that's where it was in succession. And there's no Julian date. There is dating on the parts. It's done in a Julian wheel type of a date code, but I haven't seen anything like that for the engines, and that would actually be a lot more beneficial than just where it would fall in line on a sequence, because that, again, that could fall in line in a few different ways, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's the way it was explained to me, and I kind of asked a somewhat similar question, and then I just kind of, it wasn't worth pursuing after that. Let's see. Gibbs is saying, even if you don't tune, do you port the intakes out of Houston? I'll be at Pipes this week for your March batch. Yeah, I do actually. And so yeah, just at around that time, hit me up, hit up Pipes. We'll get it knocked out. Paul's checking out saying, thanks guys. Have a great night. Shawnee is checking out saying good night. Don Power saying 5.7 truck. Better believe it. Oh, Had a fun one today with the work truck. Oh man. Had a guy in a trimmer try to run away from me in the work truck. Didn't go over well for the trimmer, and the work truck is stock Hemi. Oh my God. Had a exhaust. Let me think. Exhaust, don't know what tune the guy had. Obviously, it was a stock truck, but yeah, he tried to up and run away from the work truck, and the work truck was not having that. That was fun. Let's see. R. Gibbs. Oh yeah, R. Gibbs. Are you? Yeah, I'll do trucks, 6.4s, and 5.7 cars. That's what I try to stick to. Righty. So anyway, guys, gonna be checking out here pretty soon. Want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight. One of the things is caveat emptor when it comes to this kind of stuff, man. Again, give you guys a look. I don't know if you can see me in the background. I'm waving right now. Got my face right up on it. Anyway, yeah, you can pretty much see right through this thing. But again, in summarizing, you're losing about 12.5% of actual total surface area versus the stock filter. You know, the data just did not show any real benefit for this filter, but I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. You know, is it any better? The data doesn't show that it is, but I bought the thing and we'll just kind of go from there. I will be testing it at the track rental in January. So if it picks up anything, which I doubt very seriously because the data would have shown something different if it would have, then we'll just kind of go from there. But in the meantime, stock filter is going back in the car because it's a better filter than the green filter. So that's what we're going to go with. This is a street car, not a race car. So it needs a street filter because it gets street dirt in its intake track. And I need that to be not going into my engine very much. So thank you. At any rate, we're going to wrap it up. Y'all have a great one. Y'all try not to do anything stupid. And if you do, make sure you let me know. Share it with us. We all learn and grow through laughter on that. Anyway, I got to get back to it. That is a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Thanks for hanging out with me. Adios.